Tonight, we have the extraordinary pleasure of welcoming an icon of fearless creativity, Debra Rappaport, to FAN. For more than 50 years, Debra has been redefining what it means to live and to dress creatively. Long before sustainability became a movement, she was transforming the overlooked and discarded into extraordinary wearable art. To Debra, nothing is trash. Everything has potential. And at the heart of everything she does is her belief. Where there is creativity, there are no rules. And where there are no rules, there is no fear. Please join me in welcoming the incomparable Debra Rappaport, everybody.
Well, you said it all. There's nothing more for me to say.
And scene. See y'all later. Goodbye. How you doing tonight, Debra?
I'm doing great. Now that I'm here and looking at this audience and familiar faces, I'm delighted to be here.
There's so much to dive into. And first of all, how did you decide what to wear tonight?
Usually I call it my morning meditation. I just go inside and I check out, who am I today? Self. And then it just intuitively comes to me, the weather, what am I doing? And I just reach in the closet and it comes together. But, I'm 80 years old. I've been doing it since I'm 3. So it's not an intellectual process. And I don't think it should be. Like everything else that's creative, it's kind of a process of play. And you have to just allow it to unfold. There's not an intellectual process. This is good, this is bad, judgment. Just if it feels good. And if people want to laugh at you on the street, that's their problem. You're doing it because you're expressing yourself. And we all have soul and spirit and creativity to express. It's not about being an artist. It's just self-expression. And nobody can tell. That's why I say there are no rules. And without rules, there is no fear. Because nobody can tell you you're right or you're wrong, right? You're planting a garden, you're making a soup. So you don't follow a recipe. You do what feels right. You experiment. Can I say one thing about growing up right now?
100%.
Okay, well.
You can say 10 things.
Okay. I had wonderful parents, and I had a grandmother who was, as most of us back in my era, were very creative, and they were immigrants. And, Nana knitted and sewed, and during the Depression, took grandpa's suits and made her children clothes and all that. So my sister and I used to go visit all the time because we loved Grandma Rose. And we would go to the old sewing machine, and we would take out the button drawer. And we'd throw it on the living room floor. And my big Russian grandpa would say, "Oi, oi, they're making a mess." And my grandma would say, "Be quiet, they're being creative." And that runs through every cell in my body. There's no such thing as making a mess. You can't be creative without experimenting and playing. And it is a process of play. And so growing up, my sister and I, we didn't want dolls. It was more fun to take schmatters and fabric and dress up and take my mother's old hats and put on music and dance around the house. And it wasn't about shopping. It was about dressing up. So who needed dolls? We did ourselves, and just danced around. And it wasn't considered superfluous. It was a matter of being creative and trying things out. We were both very shy. You'd never know it now, but we were terminally shy when we were young. And maybe part of dressing up was a way of self-expression, so it might start a conversation, which today that's what it does. People stop me, tell me about your hat. So I make friends. It's just about, reaching out. What creates community, right? And like Ari Seth Cohen with an advanced style, when he started to photograph all us older women, he said the most important thing are the 3 C's: creativity, communication, and community. And we all saw that during COVID, that without being able to socialize, we were at a loss. And thank God we had at least Zoom, so that helped us somewhat connect.
For those in the audience who don't know, what is the advanced style movement?
Okay, well, in 2009, Ari moved to New York, and he started seeing older women, and he said, "Why are women of a certain age invisible?" And he never was a photographer, but he started whipping out a camera and he started photographing on the street. He had come from Seattle and grew up in Southern California. And, those are car cultures. But walking the streets of New York, you're going to see tons of incredible people. So he started photographing. And then one day he was working at the new museum. And I walked in. It was raining. I got rid of my raincoat and my umbrella. And I had pink hair then. And he comes up to me and he says, "Can I take your picture? I take photographs of women over 60. And I said, "How do you know I'm over 60? And he said, "But I forgot my camera today." I whipped out my business card and I said, "Okay, here's my card." And then he told me he was a vegetarian. And I said, "Come on over, I'll dress up, I'll undress, and I'll even make you a vegetarian lunch." So 5 days later, we connected and he came and that was it. We became inseparable and he followed me around New York. Anyway, so what came out of it, he started photographing. Then he met Lina Pleoplaite, who's Lithuanian, and I'm half Lithuanian. And she said, "Can I work with you? Can I start videoing some of your women?" So she did. And then the videos, they started getting posted and they would go viral. So she upped her ante and said, "Okay, I got to learn how to work, a film camera." And so she did. So for the next 2-3 years, they filmed women all around the city. And then they said, "Okay, well, we have to make it into a movie." So they decided on 5 of us and went further with 5 of us. And some of the other women continued. And then, of course, it took about 3 years to edit. And then the movie came out at the Quad Theater on Manhattan, 2015, I think. So it's 10 years already. In the meantime, he's put out 4 books. The last one came out just last year on advanced pets, people and their animals. And he's still working on another one, which I think might be advanced friendships, BFFs.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah. And the books are great. I mean, they're coffee table books. They have stories, but they have multiple pictures of many of the people. But advanced style took off as a movement. It really did. Companies started hiring older women, if you remember, and to do makeup, to do underwear, to do fashion. I can't even remember, but anyway, and it came out of Ari's background because he spent a lot of time with his grandmother, who grew up in Sioux City, Iowa, but in the 30s came to Columbia University to library school to become a librarian. And she told Ari all of the Ari would play with her and put on her jewelry and dress up. And she would say, "Ari, you've got to get to New York. Being creative, you've got to get there." So he helped nurse her the last few years of her life. And afterwards he said, "Okay, now I'm going to New York." And that's when he got here. And so a lot of it had to do with the influence of his grandmother. And he could see that older women had a lot to offer. We're not rolling up and disappearing. We still have, I'm 80 years old and I'm busier than I've ever been, sort of.
Woo!
So that's the advanced style story.
Before we go deeper on where you are with the advanced style movement today, would be great to rewind back a little bit. You told this beautiful story of your grandmother really encouraging and nurturing creativity as a child growing up with your sister. Where your love of fashion? How did fashion come into the fold? And at what point were you like, you know what, this is how I want to be known as a fashionista?
I don't even call it fashion because I'm not a shopper and I don't read Vogue magazine. I did when I was younger, but it's more about personal style. That's the whole thing. That if something is in, I won't wear it. And like Lagerfeld said, after trendy is tacky. Because then you look like everybody else. And so, not that I'm opposed to that, but I rather feel inside, who am I today and what do I want to express? Because I think from the very beginning, people have always worn clothes, and a lot of it was self-expression, whether it was tribal or to protect yourself from the weather, whatever. But everybody has always chosen. I mean, like, I can't wear jeans and a t-shirt. I absolutely feel like hell if I put that on. I feel like I've shriveled up and died. And Ari Seth Cohen and Lena did a piece on me walking down the street in jeans and a t-shirt. It's on the, if you get the film, it's on the outtakes. Anyway, because I just don't feel like myself. And it is no reason for me to look like everybody else if I don't feel authentic. And I think authenticity is the most important thing, especially these days with so much stuff going on that's so hard to wrap our minds around. We've got to go inside. I have something called the 4 T's, and it's a mantra. And the first T is truth. We all know our truth, but our culture pushes it so far down that we forget. So we've got to really dig down there in our gut and pull it up and say, who am I? And then we have to trust it, because it's too easy to ridicule it and criticize it and say, oh, I can't be a ballerina. I can't be an artist. And then really be tolerant of that and wrap the whole thing in tenderness and put it out there in the world and give everybody else their space to have their 4 T's. Because I think our culture has pushed us so far away from knowing who we are. And I find that very sad. But, I had parents, I had a mother who had fabulous taste, and she would keep us home from school for wellness days because in 1949, we turned vegetarian and nobody could even spell the word. So kids made such fun of us at school. Ooh, look what you're eating. It looks like bugs. No, it's brown rice. And I'd say, go back and eat your disgusting peanut butter and jelly sandwich on white bond bread. And so my mother would keep us home from school to go antiquing, to go to museums. She said, why shouldn't you have a day off? Just because you're not ill doesn't mean you shouldn't expand your horizon. So my mother was a real maverick, but she wasn't pushy. She just allowed us to play and develop and go to grandma's and play with the buttons and play with our dog. I used to love to dress up the dog. Ari Seth Cohen talks about that all the time.
Your mom was running a Montessori school at home.
Really?
Yeah, essentially, right?
Yeah.
I think now we call them mental health days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, school is intimidating. And so you need some time to play and find yourself. I found all of high school, all of college on the East Coast was intimidating. It wasn't until I got to UC Berkeley in California, and I get verklempt when I talk about this, that my professor, Ed Rossback, who just had a lot of pieces in a textile show at MoMA, would look at what I was doing and he'd say, yes, and I'd say, really? It's not a piece of crap? Yes, and so everything within could blossom. And so for the first time, I felt confident. But it took till 22 for me to feel that and not think that anything I did was real. I mean, I had a professor in ceramic class, and he was 35. He was young. He was full of himself. And we did a final project, and we had to create some kind of an impressive door. And so I made a model of it out of cut cardboard, and it was 3-dimensional. And he looks at it, and he looks at me, and he looks at it, and he looks at me, and he says, I didn't think you had it in you. I mean, was that supposed to be a compliment? Again, you're 17 years old and you feel like, anyway. So I think it takes a mentor who can look you in the eye and say, yes, and take you and allow you to be who you are. And it could only take one mentor. That's all. That's why I love to teach.
Sounds like you had some amazing role models in your life. Your grandparents as a kid, and then this professor at UC Berkeley. What did you study at UC Berkeley? What did you go to school
Textile design.
for?
I got a master's in textile design, but it wasn't industry. It was all about, because it was California, textiles as an art form.
Did you have it in your mind at that age that style and self-expression and your form of fashion was what you wanted to do? Or how did that interest in textiles come about?
Well, the textiles came about, and when I worked on my master's thesis, I didn't want to do yardage, and I didn't want to do tapestry wall hangings. I started constructing things that were 3-dimensional, and I started putting them on my body. But they weren't costumes, and they weren't apparel. They were environments. And again, Ed Rosbach said, yes, but if you don't want to weave on the loom and you take it off the loom and you twist it to make it irregular, then let's do knotless netting. Let's do macrame. Let's do crochet. So I would build pieces. I would go to the TV station and ask them if they had any old videotape. Back then, the videotape was wide, and I would crochet with it because I wanted to work with unusual materials. And that's what I've been doing since I'm 20.
You have a really funny term that you like to use to call yourself. You love to call yourself Debra Debris.
Yeah.
Or Residue Rappaport.
Yeah.
Right.
And also my husband, because I can fix anything if it's not electrical, he calls me Repair Report.
At what point did you realize that the things other people were throwing away were actually, resonating with you?
I think I've always looked around the environment, and because I had a mother who took us to antique shops and museums, we were visual creatures and tactile. That's why I went into textiles, because I like the touch. I mean, I loved combing my dog's hair and spinning the dog hair and things like that. So tactileness was very important, and the body is about that. We have to touch I think that's what's happening now, that everybody's on the computers. We're losing our sense of touch. And I recently heard that the art schools in New York have greater registrations than they've had in years. And they said because more young people want to get back to using their hands and feeling clay, feeling wood, feeling textiles. We're tired of this, This is wonderful as a tool, but is it enough to really feed our soul?
Yeah, that's beautiful. You've been working with found materials way before sustainability and sustainable fashion became trendy.
Yeah.
What was it like back in the 60s when you were working with these materials? What were people saying about working with found materials back then?
They thought it was unusual. I mean, if I was a textile artist and I was working with strawberry baskets to build a total headpiece or something, it was like, oh, well, this is interesting. I said, yeah, well, they're beautiful. They're in multiples. Anything in multiples is usable. Toilet paper rolls is one of my favorite because we have an abundance of them. And when I make the bracelets like this, it's just like doing a collage, but on a cylinder, right? So it's a cylindrical collage. And I've always loved hats because, to me, anything's a hat. I was in the flower business for 16 years here in New York and collected vases. But to me, a vase, a lampshade, a paper bag, it's all a hat. It's all a vessel, and something goes within it. So you take a lampshade, you turn it upside down. You take a hat and you put a glass container in, it becomes a vase. So everything is interrelated. You just got to look at it. I mean, this necklace is made from found metal. I started working in found metal that I would find in the streets in 1979. I was still living in California. I came to New York for a while. I didn't have a studio. I had no materials. And suddenly the metal in the street started to speak to me. And people say, well, when you find the piece of metal, do you know what to do with it? No, I just know that I relate to it. We go home, we have a conversation, and we have an experience together. And like any other creative process, something emerges. And now I have my husband and other friends on the lookout because most of the cars are made from plastic now, so it's very hard to find good pieces of metal. You can find nuts and bolts, but large pieces, it's difficult. So now I have 3 pieces that just went to my gallerist, and there's going to be a show in Munich, Germany in a few months, and she can't tell me anything more yet till she signs the
That's
contract.
awesome.
Yeah.
You have a really great quote that I love. I love about you when we just met, which is when I pick something up. It's like a relationship. We have to become friends first.
Yeah.
And so, what is it about? Can you actually walk us through what that actually means? Like when you pick up a toilet paper roll, and how do you decide, what to do with it and how it relates in your life?
A toilet paper roll is in the house, so I don't pick them up on the street because they're not there. It's mostly metal or
depends on the
cord.
neighborhood.
But I have enough of those. I save them anyway. But the metal just. And I don't even know why metal appeals to me, only that back in 79 when I didn't have materials to work with, and I'm here in New York, and there was a ton of stuff then, a ton. I made so many pieces back then. So I couldn't pass it by. You know, I'd walk down the street with a friend, and suddenly they didn't know where I was because I was down there picking up the piece. Even with my husband, he said, okay, you found me at the corner. But I think that's with any material, whatever we work, even if we're cooking. I'd look at the carrot and I said, does this carrot want to be grated or does it want to be sliced? Does it want to be pickled or does it want to be sauteed? I mean, you know, with clay, do I want to work with porcelain or do I want to work with regular clay? You know, it's all part of the process. And so when I find a piece of metal, I have to become friends with it first. We talk to each other.
Of course.
Of course.
Of course.
I mean, nobody hears me talking because it's all gone. Once in a while, I may say, you're pretty rusty. That's why I like you. You know, you got a great patina.
So speaking about process, I think this is a good segue. You know, you have coined this ABC method, assembling, building, and constructing. And it sounds really simple, but there's clearly a sophisticated form to it. Can you walk us through your process and the ABC method specifically?
I think I coined that in the early 80s when I needed to make a poster about what I did. What I am doing is I'm assembling, putting things together, whether it's clothing or making jewelry or elements for a hat. And I'm building because it's a process of building, and I'm constructing. And so I decided the easy thing was to call it ABC. And that, you know, because it's simple, it's direct. ABC, what could be simpler? And then usually it's for the body. So my body is the armature. And of course, I love color. I'm wearing less color than I usually because I'm wearing this special jacket, which I'll tell you about. Color, texture, and layering. You know, I love, because the layering, again, is a construction. We're building, right? It's not just a T-shirt and a pair of jeans. Ho-hum.
And you've said in the past that color to you is a vibration.
Yeah.
And that we're all vibrations.
Absolutely.
And so how does color as an energy relate in your process?
Okay, well, I also do healing work. And of course, having studied yoga and whatever, we know about the chakras. And we know that each chakra stands for a color and an energy. And also, being a vegetarian, I know that color in food is so valuable. You know, you eat beige food, you're going to be beige. You wear beige, you're going to be beige. A good friend of ours says, oh yeah, I forgot the quote. I'll get it back later. Anyway, but I think color is very important. And I notice that not a lot of people in New York wear color. But because it is a vibration that we need it for that purpose. You know, red is the earth chakra. Yellow is the orange is the sacrum chakra, the sex organs. Yellow is the fire chakra, the solar plexus. Green is like the leaves on a tree. It's the heart. It's the breath. The throat chakra is blue. Third eye is a different blue. One is indigo and one is I'm forgetting. And then the crown chakra is like magenta. But I think we feel that, and as we go through life, we know if our earth element needs more water, like if we're constipated, it's telling us that our earth is too hard. We need water. If we have heartburn or things like that, the fire is too strong, so we need more water. Or if we add air to the fire, it could either put the fire out or it could make it expand. So these are the kind of things that are very important to understand your body and your energy. And again, with food and with what we wear and with the colors we surround ourselves, you know?
And so black is the Brooklyn hipster chakra.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
And I have more black on than ever because I wanted to wear this jacket today.
Because we're in Brooklyn, so.
I'm in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yeah. My husband was born in Brooklyn. My mother was born in Brooklyn.
You have a saying that frugality is fun. And I love this too because, in the same way you think about color as one of the constraints, frugality is a constraint that leads to a lot of creativity. But it's interesting because, in culture today, we equate spending money with self-care and shopping with therapy, right? How do you make the case that frugality as a constraint actually is the best way of unlocking creativity?
Because you're not just being a conspicuous consumer, you're really, we all own so much. And so to be frugal is really fun because, then I have to find the metal in the street. Then I have to curate my closet and look what's there that's really fun that I've had for 20, 30 years. I mean, I have a wedding dress that I painted over 50 years ago. I still love it and I wear it all the time. It's still good. One of the women in advanced style, Alona, died at 102. She had red hair and red eyelashes that she used to make. And she would say, if it's good, it's good. And if you buy something and you love it, unless it's a T-shirt and it has a hole in it, it probably still is good. Look at it another way. And I also say, if you can't wear something inside out and backwards, it's not worth owning. Because so many things, okay, now I'll tell you about the jacket. Okay, my good friend, Martina Dietrich, MD Couture, you can look her up. The label is here. She does one of a kind. She repurposes things and recreates. And she's extremely talented. She studied in Germany. She's German, and then studied in Italy and worked in Italy in the fashion industry for 15 years. So a friend gave me this jacket, and it's black on the other side, and it's kind of like velvet and very textured and has fringe. And I wasn't going to wear it. So I gave it to Martina, and I said, I know you'll repurpose it and you'll turn it into something great. So she painted it. She knows I love copper. So for my birthday in July, she gave it to me. And of course, I like it on, and she knows I like inside out. So she painted the inside as well. So I felt like I really wanted her here present with me tonight. So Martina is here, and I'm wearing her black and gold and copper jacket.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But I think frugality, we're living in a time like our grandparents and parents lived during the Depression, but now we're living through time where, we have water shortage, we have climate change, we have, so much. I mean, you look at the amount of garbage in the landfill around the world and the amount of, we often go to Mexico and there's a Tuesday market and there are tables, about 100 tables piled with clothing. They get it from the Salvation Army and they bring it to Mexico. And that's happening in Africa and all over. But there's so much excess that, the fashion industry is one of the biggest reasons why there's so much excess in the landfill. People wear things, they buy it. It's no longer 4 seasons, what's it, 12 seasons? And you buy something and you throw it away, and it's so poorly made that, you're not going to keep it for 30 years. So, and frugality is fun because I'm not spending my energy running to Macy's or running to H&M and buying more garbage.
You've been a pioneer in found fashion, and now that as found fashion becomes trendy, are you worried it's going to become tacky? What are you going to do next?
I'm just going to be myself and do what's fun for me, whatever that is. Stand on my head, I don't know, Continue to wear the clothes inside out and backwards.
I want to get back to the advanced style movement now that we've kind of had a good chance to go through your process and get to, where you are now. In the advanced style movement, it's become this beautiful counter narrative to ageism. But it's not just about fashion, it's also about creativity. It's about community, it's about living fully. What do you think happens to creative people who stop creating as they age?
Well, maybe you don't have to create in the same way that was your profession or whatever. But I know a lot of older people are writing their memoirs. They never wrote before, but they have so much to tell that there are a lot of memoir workshops that you can begin to run your story and have a legacy. And I think, that's fantastic. I don't think we ever stop being creative, even if it's just taking the dog for a walk or making a tuna fish sandwich or
What's the most creative sandwich you've ever made?
that's a hard one because I'm not into sandwiches, but I love to make soups because
All right, let's talk about soup.
mushroom barley.
Mushroom barley.
This week, roasted butternut squash with coconut milk and vegetable broth. Soups are fun because they have a lot of ingredients. You can make a lot and freeze it, so you have it, and it doesn't go bad if you have it in the freezer. And you get a lot of vegetables and fiber down, and I think that's so important. I'm trying to think of a sandwich I ever made.
No, I love that argument for soup.
Okay.
They're fun.
Yeah.
You can freeze them.
Yeah.
Lots of fiber.
Yeah. Yeah.
The 3 Fs,
Three
guys.
Fs,
The 3
okay.
Fs. You've got the 4 T's,
Okay.
the 3 C's, and now we got the 3 Fs for soup. If we're going to take anything away,
Take notes because I
make
don't want to forget
soup.
that. Yeah. Make soup.
make soup.
Yeah. Okay,
And that's a
we
great
could do a workshop.
That's a
Make
great
soup.
philosophy for life too. Make soup.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Yeah.
Freeze it.
Yeah.
Lots of fiber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can add things to it. Like this morning, I had some shiitake mushrooms and onions left over. So I cooked them up. And then when I heated up the butternut squash soup for lunch, I threw the mushrooms and onions in. It was divine. And then sometimes a little basil or a little parsley or some salad, whatever. You make an art. When you make food, it's a creative process.
Taking a look back at your career and knowing what you know now, where you are now, what would you tell that 3-year-old little Debra who's tossing clothes all over the floor, who's very encouraged by her grandmother? What would you tell her, differently? What advice would you give her, if any?
Being that there was so much support in the family, I would just, it's one step at a time. Just keep the process going and just keep asking yourself what gives you pleasure. Pleasure of value, not ridiculous pleasure. Not what's feeding your soul, what's really stimulating you, what's educating you, what are you curious about? I think growing up we have to be curious, and I'm not a parent by choice because I saw how hard it was to be a good parent. It takes 24/7. And my mother even said to me, if you girls don't want to have children, she said, you know how much I love you, but having children is not all that it's cracked up to be. If you want a career, go for it. Just don't let your father hear me because he wants grandchildren. And I have no regrets because I have so many 25-year-old, 30-year-old friends. I didn't have to diaper them. I didn't have to send them to college. And I have good relationships with them. But I think being a parent is the hardest job there is. And it really takes a commitment. And I think a lot of people, these days, both parents have to work. It's really hard to have a full-time job and be a good parent. Pick them up from school and do homework with them and feed them 3 meals a day, send them off to school with a decent lunch so they're not eating chicken McNuggets.
Looking back at your career, you have work in museums all around the world. You have hundreds of thousands of followers, and you've influenced an entire movement. What's next that's really exciting you creatively? What are you working on right now that you want to see in the world?
Well, we're living at a hard time. So again, I think trying to encourage people to be creative, to spend time inside, not listen to the news too much because it could really make us violently ill. Really invest in your health because I think health is valuable. And I've heard that, once you're 40 and if you're having problems, it's difficult to turn it around. And by the time you're 60, it's even harder to turn it around. So I think as a creative person, to really care for yourself, self-care is very, very valuable. And with that comes the creative process of really looking into your soul and seeing what it is that you want to be. Not do, but be. I studied shiatsu for a while. And one of the things that came up was that the symbol for human beings is two things leaning against each other. But I can't think of his name now. Anyway, he said, we are human beings, not human doings. We get so caught up in the doing process. And we forget who we really are and how we want to express ourselves. I mean, I think it's that basic. I think we're clear when we're kids, and the minute we go to first grade, they really mess us up. That's not how you draw a tree. That looks like a lollipop. That's not a tree. But I think between 1 and 3, we're very susceptible to figuring out who we are. And so I think we have to honor that and keep going back to being a child and play like a child. We don't play enough. Play with your food.
Love that. Don't just do, be.
Yeah.
And play like a child.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time and inspiring all of us, Debra. Appreciate your time. Give it up for Debra, everybody.